It's about the stories of our children getting opportunity to go to college and about mamas and daddies putting nickels and dimes and quarters together to pay tuition. It's about our stories. It's about the hardships and the pain and the suffering. It's about the protests and the marching. It's about the standing. It's about the legislation. It's about all of that. It's our story.
Witness to Grace, a testimony of favor, is a poignant, true life story that chronicles the remarkable journey of W. Franklyn Richardson, from humble and challenging beginnings to honored positions of power and global influence. Witness to Grace gives an intimate portrayal of the rise of one of the most respected religious and civil rights leaders of our time.
And so Witness to Grace, I highly recommend it. Whatever else you do, if you want to give a great Christmas gift to yourself, to your family members, listen, this is it right here. Witness to Grace. Listen, Dr. Richardson, I can say I'm a witness to your witness to grace. In that I was thinking about this. I have been admiring you from afar since the 80s. In the 80s, of course, Dr. Jemison was elected president of the National Baptist Convention. And at the same time, I heard you preach at St. John Baptist Church in Dallas when I was a student at Bishop College. And I said, that Negro can preach. And then Manuel Scott would talk to me about you because he said he used to preach in Richmond and you and Dwight Jones were running the thing. And he said he had never, ever been to a revival and been hosted in such a gracious and generous fashion as when he preached for y'all. And so I've been hearing about you. And then, Doc, I never will forget, you preached this sermon, National Baptist Convention, about digging the wells or redigging old wells. Yeah. And Doc, and I think it was in New Orleans, and it's a massive crowd. And Doc, when I tell you, you dumped me, you dumped everybody that day. And that's preacher language, y'all. That's preacher language for it was a phenomenal, powerful experience. And so I've had the privilege again of witnessing your leadership, your greatness as a preacher from afar. And then God blessed me to get to know you up close. I've had the chance to preach for you. You came to Friendship West, wrecked the house, and then to watch God elevate you, where you not only serve as the chair of the board of the National Action Network, but you give leadership to every Black denomination in the country. And so it says so much about you that God has just raised you up. And then when I read this and the path you've taken, my God, you are a gift. God has done something unique and special with you. And so I'm just honored to have this opportunity to get the word out that we need to read Witness to Grace. And not only that, but I think anyone who reads it will not only be edified by your story, but inspired. Like, you know, God can do some stuff, Doc, because God has done some stuff in your life.
Thank you, Fred. Freddie, thank you, man. I appreciate, I have treasured our friendship, and I've treasured your always being consistent in being who you are.
Thank you, sir.
And your commitment to social justice is such a inspiring, that's one of my very important areas in my life, is this whole commitment to seeing the church and the gospel as a prism towards advocating social justice. And so, and you've been such a remarkable expression of that. And I'm delighted that you are having me share with me today around this book. But our friendship goes into so many different directions, and my admiration for you is full. By the way, how's your mama doing?
Oh man, she loves you. She's doing real well. I can't wait to tell her you asked about her.
Yeah.
I sure will tell her. And see, that's the thing about you, Doc, that people really will come to love and appreciate. And that is, I mean, for me, I'm growing up, you this big time preacher, and I never will forget my mother said you were preaching at Third Baptist in San Francisco. And when she introduced herself to you, she said that you just were so excited. You made her feel like she was the queen bee. And she just really, I mean, she called me right after church to tell me how gracious you were and how excited you were to meet her. And she said, and I ain't nobody, and he treated me like I'm the queen. So again, I just said so much about you, Doc, that you are the big baller and the shot caller, but you make everybody else feel like a big baller and shot caller. So that says so much about you, man. I just love and respect you. And I love the fact that, again, and I guess that this is, and I can't wait to get into this conversation, because you have been on the cutting edge of ministry, leadership, prophetic witness. I mean, for as long as I can remember. I mean, when there was the big crisis in Ethiopia back in the day, you led the National Baptist Convention in ensuring that there was, support and service. And from your stature in the World Council of Churches, World Baptist, I mean, you've always been denominationally a big baller and shot caller. And at the same time, you take the gospel to the streets. And so you embody for me what it means to take the gospel from the sanctuary to the streets to the corporate suites. I mean, you do all of that, and you do it brilliantly in the name of Jesus. As it just seems to me like you embody what Luke 4, anointed to preach good news to the poor, set the captives free, heal those who are broken. You've done it, and you've done it brilliantly. So for me, when I got this book, man, I told you already, I read through this book fast, and then I went back because I said, oh, that's preaching right there. So I ain't gonna lie, I'm preaching a whole lot of this book, Doc, because it's some preaching off in this book, man. So tell me, because I could talk about the book myself, but I didn't write it. So talk to me about what you feel are some of the key themes in the book, and why did you decide to write the book right now? I think, let me just say this right quick, 2020, the year of COVID-19, but also the year of witness to grace. And I just think that the timing of it is only a God thing. That's Talk right. to us about why now, why you decided, and then some of the themes of the book.
Well, I guess for a long time, 30 years ago, I wrote the book Power of the Pew.
Yes, sir.
And I guess since then, I've always had a lingering to really write a book that would capture my journey. And I kept, busy doing the things we do. Kept postponing it. And then 3 years ago, I had surgery. And having the surgery gave me a lot of reflective time, recovery time, reflective. And I started saying, well, I'm not getting younger, and I need to put my story down so that it might influence, encourage those who are struggling with me in this era, but as importantly, those who are coming behind me. Because I have benefited so much from the preachers and people who have preceded me.
Yeah.
One of the great things I had, if there was anything that I think functioned most perfectly in my life, was my commitment to associate with older pastors and older people to get their wisdom. I always knew that if I could know as much as somebody like T.J. Jefferson or somebody like
Sandy Ray,
Daniel Scott, just name them, and put my youth with that, that'd be a remarkable success.
Oh my God.
So I tried to do that. And so I have a great appreciation for the mentoring role in the development of the Black preacher in America. And that the role of mentoring is something that some of our preachers are getting away from, but it's a vital component to passing on a strong church and a strong pulpit to the coming generation.
Yeah.
And so I felt that I needed to gather my thoughts together especially this time with the surgery. The surgery set me down for 6 weeks.
Wow.
So it made me had to come face to face with my life, my journey, my faith, my vulnerability.
Yeah.
And so I began to reflect on it. And as I reflected on it, the thing that stood out over and over again was how grace had functioned in my life.
My.
And so I ended up writing the book through the prism of grace. I intentionally wanted to tell the story through the prism of grace, to recall, revisit my journey in the light of that passage, I am what I am, but by the grace of God.
Yes, sir.
And so in doing that, Freddie, I came up with this title and began, and the truth is that once I overcame the surgery, got back running again, I realized that that was a good idea, but I still didn't have time to do it. But I was committed to doing it. So as I was saying, when I got back, I realized that I didn't have the downtime that I had consumed while thinking about it. And now it's time to write it. So what I ended up doing, Freddie, this is amazing. I ended up, wherever I would go, on airplanes and cars, on trains, in the middle of the night, I had my cell phone. And I wrote the book with my thumb and my cell phone.
Wow.
So all of the pages, all the manuscripts are in my cell phone. I would take the script, write the book, send a chapter to the publisher at a time. They do some editing and so forth. And I did that over a 12-month period.
Man.
Writing with my thumb, every single word. And so that's how the book evolved. That's how it came into being. And then I guess I also wanted to make sure that the book represented me in terms of balance, in terms of presentation. I wanted to be something that could last for years to come and have value. And I also felt that it was necessary for me to be transparent, because it is in the transparency that I could be helpful. And also, it was important to understand that grace functions best not on the mountains, but in the valley.
My.
And you can't see grace going forward. You only go forward by faith. You only can see grace looking back over your shoulder.
Yes, sir.
And seeing the fingerprints of God in the evolving of your journey.
My Lord.
So that's the kind of premise out of which the book was wrote. So given that background, then I began to go into my life, starting with the thing that I guess may have been the most painful thing for me, even though I had other disappointments. The most painful thing was the experience I'd had at the National Baptist Convention, pursuing being president. But I owned the pain. I owned the anger. And looking back, it was transformative and it was divinely intentioned. You mentioned Manuel Scott. He was dear to me. And yes, the experience in Richmond was an important experience, but many times he and I spent time together.
Oh yeah.
And he was such a blessing to me. And I admired him so much. As a matter of fact, hypothetically, when I first started preaching, when he came to Richmond, I had only been pastoring a year. I was at the Rising Mount Zion Church. And I had to preach on a Friday night. He got in early for the revival was starting on Sunday. So I was going to preach Friday night. He said, let me go with you, Rich. So he went with me to the revival, to where I was preaching. And when it was over, he said, Rich, he said, you could preach without a manuscript. You don't need to use no manuscript.
Wow.
And I said, Doc.
Wow.
Yeah. He said, yeah, you can do it. You can do it. And so I said, okay. So I went, the next Sunday, I went to the pulpit without a manuscript. I continued to prepare, but I went without a manuscript. And it did well. And that from that day forward to this, I don't use a manuscript in the pulpit, even though sometimes I wanted to run back and go get it, but I resisted the temptation. But Manuel Scott functioned in that very fundamental way to help nurture my gifts.
Wow.
So and so when I went to meet during the campaign, I'll never forget this. I went to Dr. Scott. I assumed that given our closeness, that he was going to be supporting me for president.
Right.
To my chagrin, when I went to see him, I said, Doc, I know I can count on you to vote. He said, no, Rich, I'm not going to vote for you. I said, what? How could you not vote for me? I was served for 13 years as secretary. You've been there. You've seen me before. You know me? He said, yeah, I know you. He said, and I just want to tell you two things. And he said, I want you to know that this convention will never make you president. And the second thing he said, and the reason why they won't make you president, your vision is too big for this convention. And he said, God's got some greater things for you to do than you be stepping around here in this convention. I said, what? I was so mad with him, Doctor, that he told me that. I had a hard time reconciling myself with that counsel.
Yeah.
But as life evolves, I can see
Doc,
God had other things that God wanted me to do.
Yeah.
And I want that to be important to other young people.
Yeah.
Just because the things on your horizon that you seek to do are not immediately available to you, do not think that God has dismissed you.
Yeah.
It's like you say now, God may have set you back so he could set you up.
Come on now.
And so that is what that's the entrance, the entree into the book.
Yes, sir.
The idea of disappointment, but coming to a place where you realize that God had something else to do. And so that's how I start. And then I shift on into my early years with my parents. I talk about my experience in education. I was a student at West Philadelphia High School. And in Philadelphia back in the day, if you were quiet and had good conduct, they pass you on from grade to grade.
Wow. And
I ended up being in the 10th grade, had never read a book completely. And however, I aspired to be a doctor. And I went to meet my counselor and I said to him, I want to go to college. And he said to me, you're not college material. Now that was kind of shocking because I thought if you go to school, that's the road that you go to.
Of course.
But he said, you're not college material. And to tell the truth, he was speaking the truth at that time, even though I couldn't receive it. And the reason why he's speaking the truth is because the school system hadn't prepared me to be college material.
Right, right.
So I ended up graduating without some competencies, core competencies. But I never took truth to him. I went on to West Philadelphia Community College, and I flunked out and didn't understand why I flunked out. And so when I went to my pastor, I told him I changed and I wanted to be a minister. And he said, I told him I wanted to be prepared. He said, well, I want to send you, go to Virginia Union. I want you to send you apply to Virginia Union. I'm going to get George Carr to intervene on your behalf. Leonard Carr, who was pastor of Vine Memorial at the time.
Right.
I'm going to get him to intervene for you to get to Virginia Union. Virginia Union tested me and found out that I had reading incompetency. I couldn't read.
Wow.
And they said, what we're going to do is give you conditional matriculation, and we'll put you in remediation for a year. If you do well, we'll let you stay. Well, God blessed me. I did well. Went on to Yale, went on and earned doctorate, and traveled the world with all this stuff. Yeah. And 35 years later, as you know, you've been there, the kid with conditional matriculation is now the chairman of the trustee board, signing every degree.
Yes, sir.
Graduates from the university.
Yes, sir.
So it's again, it's testimony of grace, the testimony of favor, how your situation does not have to constrain your destination.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So I want my colleagues, I want my people who are believers, I want my young generation of pastors who are coming to understand those vital lessons that I learned and at least be exposed to them, and in their own lives, they could be used for their own benefit.
Yeah, yeah. That's powerful, man. And again, you won't say it, I'll say it for you. I think Dr. Scott was not just right, but then you look at how God has moved And again, you give leadership. I mean, all the denominations come together under the Conference of National Black Churches, led by Dr. Franklyn Richardson. And so it's almost as if that rejection from the National Baptist Convention was setting the stage for a promotion that the convention could not block. Because God, when God decides to bless you, can't nobody block you. And so, man, it's just powerful. So here's the thing again. One of the many things I admire about your ministry is that in your being a witness to grace personally, it has flowed over into your sense of social responsibility. Mm-hmm. And so your prophetic witness has taken you literally all over the world. And it's not uncommon to see you marching in the streets, protesting against injustice. And this year has been a crazy year. COVID-19 exposed afresh, COVID-16, 19. I think someone talked about the fact that COVID-19 didn't break America, but it showed where America is broken. Yes. And so what you've done in your marvelous ministry is used your pulpit as a platform for prophetic witness. And so the question I'm asking right now is, what can the church do in these disunited states, in a world that is broken, to serve as an agent of healing?
Well, I think for me, the mandate and mission of the church must flow from the life and ministry of Jesus Christ.
Yes, sir.
And when we see our mission through that prism, it is a message that calls us to engage in the transformation of the culture, to challenge the inequities of the society and distribution of wealth, the abuse of the climate, the systemic racism. All of those things show up in my view of Jesus.
Yeah.
Which is in contradiction to the Jesus of the white evangelicals.
Come on.
I don't know their Jesus. I never met him. As a matter of fact, I don't even want to meet their Jesus.
No.
Because their Jesus is on the side of the oppressor, and their Jesus doesn't care about justice and equality.
Come on, Doc.
So for me, at the heart of what, for the church to have validity and relevance, it has got to be faithful to the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Yes, sir.
It's got to be engaged in social justice. I guess I begin there. I know we all have fundamentally, and I've enjoyed it as well, the commitment of salvation and to be saved by Christ, by his grace.
Yes, sir.
But I think the first step after that is a consciousness towards equality and justice in the society.
Come on.
Once you meet Jesus, once he becomes your savior, once you accept him and are baptized, the next step for that is your advocacy for the things Jesus was an advocate for.
Yes, sir.
And so that for me is the solution, or well, not only the solution, but it's certainly the mandate of the church. Now, whether we're going to be successful at that, I cannot assure us that, because success is not the measure of the church's prosperity. The church's prosperity measure is faithfulness.
That's it.
We get a crown for faithfulness.
Come on, Doc.
We don't get a crown for succeeding. And so we must reorient ourselves from the capitalistic orientation that what success is.
Yeah.
For the church, success is remaining faithful to the core values of Jesus Christ in the face, and that's the history of the church when it's at its best.
Yeah.
The church, Jesus did not succeed in the culture. Jesus died on the cross.
Come on, Doc.
So we may end up, nobody guarantees we're gonna be successful churches.
Yeah.
We may end up on the cross.
Come on.
But that is where ministry will lead us. And so we cannot measure our success based on the values of the culture, or Americanism or capitalism. We can't measure that, but we can be faithful to the mandate and message of Jesus Christ. And when we do that, we have indeed succeeded.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for that, Doc. That is so helpful. again, because of your social consciousness, talk to us about what you feel COVID-19 has exposed in terms of inequities and inequalities and injustice in this nation and even the world.
You know, as you talked about, timing is everything. When I had finished the book in April, it was supposed to be released and distributed, but pandemic came and shut down the publishers, shut down the distribution networks. And so I ended up with the book completed. The manuscript was there, but I caught in this shutdown. I couldn't resist the temptation to see where how grace was functioning in the pandemic. So I raised the question for myself: where is the grace of God? Where is God's grace in what's going on? And the questions that kept coming, like, could it be that in the DNA of humanity, God had set up a standard by which if we went below, there'd be an automatic default that would cause us to save ourselves from ourselves? That would be grace. Could it be that in the pandemic, we saw the fake barriers of our globalism come crumbling down, because it made no difference whether you were Italian or Spanish or American, the pandemic ignored you? Could it be that because the only people affected by the pandemic were human beings? The cows never stopped mooing, the dogs never stopped barking, the sun never stopped shining, the moon still moves in its orbit, the water still goes twice in 24 hours. But the one who got disrupted was the custodian of the creation.
Come on.
So could it be that the fact that we were spiraling towards classism and unequal distribution of wealth and destroying the climate, could it be that God put this into the formula of humanity, that when we got so corrupt that something would break out to call us back? And is the pandemic a call to restart, readjust? Is God calling us to reassess ourselves?
Yes, sir.
Raise the question of, we saw vulnerability like we'd never seen it before. And so for me, the pandemic is very well may be an expression of God's grace to save humanity from the spiral that we were on towards destruction.
My Lord.
Now, the question will become, having been confronted with the pandemic, will we just start over again, or will we start again? Will we start over again, or will we just start over? Will we just go back and do the same things that we have been doing? Or will we reevaluate what we've been doing? And how does it? And so I think this Black Lives Matter, the function on Floyd that showed up and only showed up because of the pandemic. We would have been watching television as intensely as we were.
Say that.
And for that to be a partner in this pandemic is for me a call to the creation, to the custodians of the creation. The Lord never bothered the flowers.
Right.
He never bothered anything else. He only bothered human beings.
Right.
And are we to decipher out of this a real sense of reevaluating ourselves, how we relate to each other, and build a world more aligned with God's purpose?
That's powerful. That is so powerful. Speaking of, one of the things that, again, you were known for, again, preach the horns off of Billy Goat, as Dr. Scott used to say. At the same time, you hit the streets, Doc. So what about grace drives you to engage in social protest so we make this world what God would have it to be?
You know, the diversity of interests that I have had in my life are the result of extraordinary mentors who entered in at various junctures of my journey. And they kind of custodied me or escorted me to the different phases of my experience. So I'm owing to a whole lot of people. The first escort to faith was my mama.
Yeah.
But from there on, there was my pastor. There was A.B. James, President of Virginia Union. There was Y.T. Walker. And then there was T.J. Jemison and Sandy Ray and Gardner Taylor. All of those people helped direct my journey. And one of them was Y.T. Walker. Y.T. Walker, as you know, was the chief of staff to Martin Luther King Jr.
That's right.
And he was a graduate of Virginia Union, both undergrad and grad. And he came to Virginia Union's campus at the invitation of the school. And I had the privilege of meeting him. And he used to say, when Rich met me, he used to carry my briefcase. Now I carry his briefcase. But, we were so enamored with the great Y.T. Walker coming.
Of course.
And I got to be close to him. And then I got called to New York. And he pulled me really close after I got to New York. And he became a strong mentor, a father-son relationship. Brothers, father and son, all three in that mix.
Wow.
And he nurtured me in that. He nurtured me. He and I did a cohort at the United Theological Seminary, a doctoral cohort. Wow. Richardson Walker cohort. Walker, I don't know what it was, but it was two of us. And then he invited me to be on the board of National Action Network. He was the chairman, having been former for King, and he worked with Sharpton. Yeah. And he got sick. He recommended me to be the chairman of the board of the National Action Network.
Wow.
And so what I'm trying to say is that the function of grace in my life made me susceptible to those things that were at the heart of my understanding of what Jesus was.
Yeah.
And so my engagement in the streets is really an extension of my understanding of my responsibility as a pastor, given the resources that I've been given, that I have an obligation. I guess Wyatt helped put that in me. I have an obligation to the social construct of our society.
Yeah.
And so I got locked up. I've been everything, and with Wyatt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so but as I said, all of these things came as a result of the intervention, graceful intervention of mentors in my journey.
And Doc, your mentors, I mean, when you just called the name Sandy Ray, Wyatt T. Walker, T.J. Jemison, Manuel Scott, you're talking about Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Gardner C. Taylor.
Right.
And so I'd like to hear if you want to share any anecdotes about them. And then, you know, the beautiful thing is you've passed it for you've paid it forward, because there are so many, from Howard John Wesley. I've been a beneficiary. I guess for me, the most powerful testimony is the most dynamic activist now is Tamika Mallory. And Tamika Mallory, to this day, Doc, she will talk about how she was afraid to talk. She wouldn't even speak up. And now you can't stop her from talking. But she says she got that because you poured into her. You believed in her. So I'd like to hear some anecdotes from you shared about Wyatt T. Walker, Manuel Scott. What about Sandy Ray? And again, how you have paid it forward. Howard John Wesley talks about you in the book, about how he was in all of you, and yet you poured into him and have for some 30 years now.
Sandy Ray was interesting. I got to New York. He was bigger than life. President of in Proud Baptist Convention, vice president of National Baptist. And it just so happened that when I got here, he was married to Cynthia Ray.
Right.
Mrs. Ray, and her son, Tal Owens, he was in school with me in West Philadelphia. We knew each other from school.
Okay.
Right. When she found that out, she snatched me into the Ray's custody.
Man.
My wife and I. And to tell you the truth, the only place, Freddie, I've been around the world, the only time I ever had pheasant under glass was at Sandy Ray's house. and so they had my wife and I. Anyway, I got very close to Dr. Ray. I was a student at Yale at the time. And I admired him so much, and I noticed that he had never had a book written. So I said, Doc, you need to write a book. He said, no, Richard, that ain't me. I said, no, you give me permission to go forward? He said, yes. So I gathered his sermons, worked with Ms. Wall in his office.
Yeah.
He gave me power of attorney. I went to Broadman Press in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And I got the book all together, brought back the galley proofs for him to review. And at the end of his review, the next week he died before he saw the book complete. He approved the galley proofs, but he never saw the finished book. He knew the title, Journey Through the Jungle. And so he and I became really treasured friends. And you talk about anecdotes. So when he died at Sunday before Easter, Friday before Easter, I heard about it. I ran over to the house. When I got to the house, wasn't but a day or so later, Ms. Ray said to me, Franklyn, we're having a funeral on Easter Sunday or whatever it was. And I want you to deliver the minister's tribute in the program.
Wow.
And that's what I said. And I said, oh no, Ms. Ray, Dr. Ray known all over the world. And I'm just a student in seminary and I passed the grades, but I said, there's so many people deserve that. And Gardner Taylor was going to preach the funeral.
Right. I
was going to do to you 15 minutes. So I said, no, Ms. Ray, no, I can't. I'm sure somebody else got to do that. And she said to me, Franklyn, do you know the importance of a moment? Doctor, that has fed me so much. Franklyn, do you know the importance of a moment? That's
yes,
what she
sir.
told me.
Yes, sir.
And I went to Gardner and I said to him, I told him the same thing. I said, I don't feel. He said, Franklyn, you go on and do what Ms. Ray asked you to do. And I did. And when I finished that service, T.J. Jemison was the general secretary of the convention.
Yeah.
He was there representing the convention, but Dr. Jackson didn't come. So he was there representing. When it was over, T.J. Jemison came up to me and said, Richardson, you lost your mentor today. He said, I'm going to take you up.
Wow.
At the funeral of Sandy Ray.
Wow.
Now that's a powerful anecdote, isn't it?
Doc, that is so powerful.
And I ended up following him as general secretary.
Come on, man.
Of the denomination.
Come on.
Again, the extension of God's grace, you see?
Doc, you caught that moment.
Yes, sir. The moment, Doc.
Doc.
Do you know the importance of a moment?
Doc, don't have me shouting on this thing, man. It's supposed to be an interview, not church, man. Jesus. Man.
That's what happened. So that's how Sandy Ray and I got to be. I used to ride around, Dr. Ray used to ride around in the chauffeur-driven Lincoln. And Mr. Davis had a cap. And Sandy Ray was bigger than life.
Yeah.
And we would sit in the back car sometime and he said, Richardson, you're gonna be a great fellow. You're gonna be a great leader. I said, why you say that, Doc? Because you hang out with old people. I ain't gonna tell you what he said. He said, old people, but you don't know. and so I said, okay, Doc. And so we got to be real close.
Yeah.
And, you asked me about anecdotes. One that sticks out in my mind is Gardner Taylor.
Oh, man.
When I lost the election in Louisiana, that night, I didn't know Dr. Taylor was paying attention. When the election was over, and it was tremendously controversial because my opponent had his people go in and mismanaged the computers the night before. And they were caught doing it. And, but I bowed out. I didn't feel I didn't want to raise anyone, embarrass the convention. I didn't want to do anything. So when I got back to my hotel and everybody was gathered in our room, the phone rang and my wife said, "Rich, this is, you need to pick up this call. You need to take this call." I said, "Okay." So I went on and Gardner Taylor's office and said, "Franklyn," he said, "I just called to tell you I've been where you are." And he said, "I want you to know, I want you to know that there is life after the National Baptist Convention."
Yes, sir.
And he said, "Today you have joined a great club of those who've been rejected."
Wow.
They rejected Martin Luther King.
Yes, sir.
I was rejected by the convention.
Yeah.
And you have joined that club tonight.
What a club.
And I want you to know that there's a future. Good night, wow. Franklyn.
Doc, what a club. Jesus.
Isn't that something, Doc?
Doc, my God.
So, those kind of things show up as signs of God's grace.
Yeah.
All along the way. I mean, so it's been a lot of great episodes. T.J. Jemison, he was a full chapter in my life. 13 years as general secretary under him. We was a walking history of the National Baptist Convention. He knew everything. And he knew at the time, there had no computers, he knew the names and addresses off the top of his head of all the churches in the convention. It was over 30,000.
I heard that, so that's true.
That's true, Doc. He had been secretary for 29 years.
Yeah.
And secretary then didn't mean running a computer. It meant the hard grassroots of dealing. That's right. And then his daddy was the president before him. That's so I learned so much from Dr. Jemison, so many things. So many experiences were the result of his grace to me. He was a caring and loving person and very challenging. One of the things that most impressed me early on with Dr. Jemison was we had been somewhere traveling, and we always used to share a suite when we go together. And I remember one night, I walked past his room, and the thing that stuck on me, I saw him down on his knees praying.
Wow.
In his bedroom by himself.
Powerful.
And I said, there's a man who's the biggest Baptist in the country, and he's kneeling down talking to God, just like the person who just met God yesterday.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That stuck with me, that sense of humility before the Lord. And his imagination, we built the World Center.
Yes, sir.
We put the statue of King at Morehouse.
Yeah.
Built the Baptist Center in Louisiana. So he was a great man, and built the church, the first Zion Church in Baton Rouge.
That's right.
So he had great experiences, and he took me all the step of the way.
Yeah.
And appointed me as the ecumenical officer for the convention, and under that, on the World Council of Churches stage, that I had opportunity to engage, and designate me to be in charge of the delegation that delivered $1.5 million of food and medical supplies to Ethiopia.
Yes, sir.
So his grace extended to me is very, very significant.
Yeah. Doc, one of the things and often it's not noted, Dr. Jemison was the first to lead a successful bus boycott.
Yes.
And Dr. King came and got lessons from him.
And he says that in his book.
Yeah.
King acknowledges that.
That's right.
Yeah.
So again, unsung hero, but Doc, he definitely was heroic.
Yeah, and social justice conscious.
Oh, thank you, Jesus. And he brought it back to the convention.
Yes. That's right.
Yeah.
And the convention thrived under that return to that.
And hadn't been the same since.
Well, we know that.
So Doc, let me ask this. The thing that struck me as I was reading is that you've overcome so much. I mean, so grace does not mean you won't struggle.
No.
As a matter of fact, you kick this thing off, and I want you to wrap it for us with this. You talked about grace showing up in the valley.
Yes.
In the struggle moments. And 2020 has been a year of struggle. It's been a valley year.
Yes.
So talk to us from your own witness about how grace shows up in our struggles in the valley, and help us get through this valley we're going through in 2020.
Everybody can acknowledge grace on the peaks, but the authentic power of grace is seen in the pits. It's in the darkest moments of our lives that we can taste the sweetness of God's grace. It's when we have gotten to the door. You know, I said in the book that my grandmother used to say, you can't ask God questions, but I differ with her and I respect her faith.
Yeah.
But when you get into the dark place, ain't nobody else to ask but him.
Right.
And can't nobody else do nothing to help you but him.
Come on.
So, and he doesn't help you because you deserve to be helped, because sometimes your own actions and disobedience have put you in the pit. But he doesn't deliver you because you deserve to be delivered. The fact that you get delivered from the pit is he extended his grace to you.
Yes, sir. Yes.
And so our dark moments help us to have that kind of encounter. As I said earlier, this pandemic, what we've gone through in 2020, is clear evidence that God can, so many, I didn't say this, but so many good things have happened in the pit of 2020.
Come on, man.
We highlight a lot of things that are bad, but some good things have come out of 2020. And some revisiting, and we'll see the benefits of the darkness.
Yeah.
When we come to the light. When we look back over 2020 and be able to understand it.
Yeah.
In the context of having come through it. Yeah. We're gonna have some great testimonies. We're gonna have some great stories of how God delivers. So I would say to people that don't be afraid of the darkness.
Yeah.
Just hold on to his hand. He's God of the mountain, but he's also God of the valley.
Yes, sir.
And the truth is that mountains and valleys are co-conspirators. You can't have a mountain without a valley, and you can't have a valley without a mountain. They depend on each other.
Yes, sir.
And so it's the part of the landscape and topography of our human pilgrimage, and we can't avoid it. All of us are going to have it. All of us going to have some dark days.
Yeah. Doc, thank you so much, man. That I'm going to run with that. Benefits in the darkness and the co-conspirators, mountains and valleys. Can't have one without the other. Jesus. Thank you, man. Listen, I could talk to you all day. I just want to make sure y'all get this book, okay? This conversation is just a preview of all the good nuggets, the treasures that are found in this book, Witness to Grace. I promise you, it's a page turner. The more you read it, the more you want to read it. But then you'll go back, because again, I read it. I mean, I'm just because I'm flipping because it's that well written, and then I go back and say, Jesus, that's some good stuff right there. So please, whatever else you do, bless yourself, bless your family, read Witness to Grace, and it will, I promise you, edify and build up your life. Dr. Franklyn Richardson, my friend, my brother, I love you, I respect you, I admire you. And I thought I admired you until I read this book. Now I admire you about exponentially. So thank you so much for just blessing us. And thank you, man. I'm gonna learn how to write a book on a phone, okay?
Right. That's what it's gonna take for you. It's because you're too busy. You're gonna have to do that.
Because Doctor, I mean, to get this from this,
yeah,
only Franklyn Richardson. That's amazing. That's amazing. Thank you, my brother.
Witness to Grace, a testimony of favor, is available for purchase. Get your copy today from Amazon,